Joblo and Alex. Is that Betty White in a Mandalorian t-shirt?
Oh, she's the Betty White Ranger.
Oh, very good. But while we're talking about this, if you could get me an Estelle Getty Images shirt, I would wear that.
That would be awesome.
I got one last one. It's B. Arthur, but it's the film Arthur where she's playing the Dudley Moore part. So I want a picture of B. Arthur in a white suit kind of falling over with John Gielgud behind her being like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Next time we talk, I'll have the shirt.
Thank you.
We are about to embark on the biggest campaign in the history of the world, part 2.
So when I was a kid going to Hebrew school and they didn't have anything else to do to fill the time, they showed us one of two things, either Raiders of the Lost Ark, because, killing Nazis, or it was a Mel Brooks movie. So Mel Brooks is an icon, a legend. What was it like taking over the mantle from him? And Nick, we can start with you.
Well, it was a lot like Hebrew school in that we all had different behavior than we did at our regular school.
Mm-hmm.
You were all hooking up a lot?
It's just tons of hookups in smelly, weird gym bathrooms.
Awesome.
And no, again, as your experience, I think, was similar to Ike and ours and so many other people, whether they were, Jewish or went to Hebrew school or not. Mel was so incredibly formative in my comedic upbringing and my life in general. When I got the call to see if I would be interested in being involved in this, it was such a no-brainer. He's a literal hero of mine, and also because of how much his work influenced the kind of comedy that I have endeavored to do. And this particular movie, I owned was like one of 3 VHSs that my family owned. It was that. Lady Chatterley's Lover from Cinemax, and then of course again, shout out to Hebrew school, Europa.
Nice.
Those are the three comedies that
by the way, your Hebrew school is amazing. You guys watched like Blazing Saddles and Raiders of the Lost Ark. When it rained, they made us at my Hebrew school watch either Exodus or The Chosen with Robbie Benson.
Of course.
That's, I always think back, I read a list that there's a list of movies about badass Jews, and it was 10 Commandments and Casino, and that was the whole list. So, Mel Brooks movies they run the gamut, and they cross, between Jewish-centric humor and then just being hilariously funny. So, I mean, Ike, for you, was there ever a line where it was, this is as far as we can take this, or was it always, let's push it a little bit farther and see how funny this can be?
Oh, definitely the latter. When we first all got together and talked, Mel told us very clearly, don't be afraid to tell dirty jokes. And you don't want to do like a very homogenized version of Mel Brooks just because, that's not who he is. And so, we definitely were looking to go as crazy as we can. If anyone, if we thought we needed to pull it back, we did. But we really, for the most part, I think, really just let it all out there just because that's what Mel wanted. That's what we wanted. And it feels like the folks who watch this show, that's what they're going to want. So we really did some just absolutely disgusting things on this show that I'm not proud of.
You should be. They're hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Good gravy is Harriet Tubman, the inventor of the bathtub.
How did these dumbasses enslave us?
Roll it.
And, I worked at a Blockbuster back in the day, dating myself how old I am. And people used to come in all the time and they would say, oh, do you have History of the World Part 2? I'm like, it was a joke. It's not real. Well, now we have History of the World Part 2. What are the odds that we will see History of the World Part 3?
Well, I think and we've got the show Blockbuster on Netflix. And so I think the opportunity is you can get History of the World Part 3 at the Blockbuster on the show on Netflix, even though this is for Hulu. I know it seems confusing, and it is.
It will work.
It makes perfect sense to me.
A B story in Blockbuster season 2, whenever they shoot it, episode 4, that will be about history of the world.
It all makes sense. It's all there. It's all, you just have to read between the lines. Ike and I took acid before this interview. And so you just have to sort of find your psychedelic groove, and then you'll find the answers in between.
I'm just going to warn you, there is a mountain lion right over your right shoulder, and it's about to fucking sink its teeth into your neck, Alex.
He's speaking Latin, which is very weird to me because I don't speak Latin, but I know exactly what he's saying. But I really appreciate you guys so much in your time today. It's been a blast. Thank you so much. The show's phenomenal. And, thank you again for your time.
Thank you for being a friend.
I am Sigmund Freud. Join me for my masturbates. Masterclass. What?
So this is a series that I remember back in the day when I worked at Blockbuster Video, people used to come in all the time and they used to say, "Oh, do you guys have History of the World Part 2?" And I'd have to tell them it's a joke. It doesn't actually exist. And now we have it, and it's, you're picking up the mantle of one of the most iconic figures in film and comedy of all time. It seems like it's kind of a daunting thing. Dave, we'll start with you. What was it like kind of picking up the mantle of this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. It was it felt like there was a lot of pressure, like just from like my personal own experience of growing up with Mel Brooks, as I call him, like my first babysitter.
Yeah.
If my parents were doing something, it was a bunch of VHS tapes and me and my brother, and it was Young Frankenstein and History of the World and Blazing Saddles. So yeah, it was daunting. But when we started meeting with Mel a couple times, and he just still had this sense of humor, and he pitched jokes that he'd been sitting on for 40 years that he wanted to put in the show. It was just like, oh yeah, we can do this. This is just like, we just have to, get into that, tap into that Mel type of joke telling. And, you get a room full of people together and you write a ton of sketches and you write a ton of jokes and you make a ton of bad jokes that don't make it. And you get, hopefully your best stuff gets you to the place where you feel like you've not like embarrassed Mel Brooks's name.
What ideas have you got for Shakespeare?
What if we do a play, but it's got music and singing?
Anyone else with a good idea?
Alice, this is not like just directing one thing, because this is so many sketches and so many different things. Just logistically, this seems daunting. Like, I mean, that's just the word that keeps coming back. Like, so many different time periods and costumes and casts and crew and everything's just kind of like all mixed up constantly. How did you kind of center how you were approaching each one of these segments?
Well, like something great about TV is it really is a team sport. And we had such a strong team. Kevin Atkinson, our DP, Monica Soto, our production designer, so everybody cared. Fundamentally, everybody was a Mel Brooks fan that we were working with. And I think we all shared the same kind of feeling as Dave of like, we really want to live up to this opportunity. So it's a lot to manage, but I think it's just a lot. You just have to put the work in. And creatively, as a director of the series, like, I always just return to Mel's movies when I felt like I needed inspiration. Like, the text's all there. Those movies are all there, as a reliable resources for inspiration. So I would always turn to them, if we needed inspiration along the way. And
were there any segments that were more challenging to direct than others?
There were some that were just, the scale of them were just so huge. And we had typically we would shoot, I think often with 2 cameras, sometimes 3 in a bigger day. There were some days we had many more. One of them that comes to mind is just in our Civil War wraparound or tentpole, when we're first arriving, our Union heroes are first arriving in this town. There's horses, there's tons of crowds, there's musical elements that, and it's just it's like you're basically at that point like an athlete. You just have to hit that shot clock. You would need to make sure you get the shot. Don't get any more takes than you need, so you can make sure that you get all of the work accomplished in a day. And there's a lot of moving parts, but we had such a great team. And I should mention Sally Suliander, our AD too, who was fundamental in making sure that everybody was on track for success.
Oh, hello.
Who is this?
It's your mama. If you're my mother, what is your last name?
Mel.
It's my mother. That confirms it.
From a writing standpoint, from the way that these were crafted, was it always the anticipation that these were going to be broken out so that it's not just each episode is like a volume of history, but that we have little bits kind of peppered throughout the entire season?
We went back and forth. That was the original idea, was we would, always like the tent poles, as we call them, Jesus, Russian Rev, Civil War, Shirley Chisholm. We would always end that on something that would push forward to another sketch the audience could feel was going to come later. And then we would break it up with Shakespeare and Kama Sutra and D-Day and whatever else. But then we were sort of thinking, oh, you know what, maybe when we were shooting the show, maybe it'd be better if we just chunk them up and then we'll put all the sketches on their own separate episodes, all the one-off sketches. And then we tried that and it felt like kind of just claustrophobic. and you wanted to like bounce around the world and around the eras. So then we went back to the tent poles being spread out. And just to go back to that Alice, you made me think of also the way we had to like talk through and figure out getting 5 or 6 guys on the horses to all be hung at the same time. Like that was a major
wild.
Yeah, that was
I mean, I have a producing background. I'm like, we're not really doing this, right? Like, I was like, we're gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
But it worked out. It was safe
out,
and it was
yeah.
wild.
That was just something also about like, and Alice can speak more to this as a more experienced sketch director, but this was big scale. Like I feel like most sketch doesn't go this big scale, but we wanted some cinematic. We wanted our tempos to be cinematic, and then we would, go in tighter for like more set stuff, like on the one-off sketches. But that was one of the big challenges, was making sure we got that cinematic feel that everybody felt we owed to Mel. Because the first one, obviously, huge sets in the first one.
All right, and you definitely did pull it off. It was a blast watching it. I really enjoyed it. Can't wait for everybody to check it out. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.